There we go. Right, that's everything sorted out. So we shall start on our little tier list here. So, like I did last time, guys, I'm going to go through these in the order they are here, which is alphabetical order. And I will grab the notes that I've made. Let's have a look here. Yep. Okay. So we'll see how well this meets up with what you guys may or may not expect. Like with the Scouts, I think there are going to be a couple of surprises in here as to where I've put certain trucks and what I have to say about certain trucks. I've been doing some testing this week to kind of refresh my brain on all of these trucks because I will admit that some of them I haven't used very much. Some of them I dismissed very, very quickly when we first unlocked them here on our playthrough. And some of them, having gone back to them, have surprised me in terms of what they're actually capable of. So we will go through here and I will show you what I mean. So, first up, the Forester. Yes, in fact, Walker, as I was saying earlier, it is 26 trucks as opposed to 20 Scout trucks that we did last time. So it's actually more. I think it's the biggest class. Then again, the off-road, there may be more off-road trucks. I'm not sure. It's certainly a lot, certainly a lot. So we'll get started and we'll see where these all go. So the Forester. I really like the Forester. And before you all judge me for where I'm going to put this, it's not a bad truck by any means. It's not a bad truck. It's just really limited in what it can do. And versatility is something that I really value in these trucks. So the Forester, surprisingly, is going to go into the C tier. Hey, Thais, good of you to join us. It's going in the C tier. Now, that might surprise people because I actually have said numerous times that I really like the Forester and I think it's a really great logging truck. And I know some of you guys think it's a really great logging truck. But that's all it is. That's everything the Forester does. It doesn't do anything else. It just does logs. And it only does short and medium logs. I think if it was able to fit a long log attachment and tow long logs, it would jump up a tier to B. But, I also feel like it should be able to carry either type of log without having to swap its attachment, If you put the medium log carrier on it, it should be able to load small logs into that, as well as medium logs. I don't think... I'll say that about all trucks that can carry a small and a medium log container. If you put the medium one on there, it should be able to take the small logs as well as the medium logs. I don't understand why it can't, other than coding, because the short logs are smaller than medium logs. So, you would think that they'd fit, but they don't, because it's not the right attachment, which is really annoying. So the Forester gets a C because yeah, it does logs. It does logs well. It's really stable. It is slow. Yes, as you say there, Walker. It is very slow, but it's very stable. It has its own built-in crane, and it does a really good job at logs. And it has a trailer hitch, so you can tow a medium log trailer behind you, deliver a couple of logs at the same time. And because it's really stable, it does not tip over when it's delivering these logs, which is what a lot of other vehicles suffer from, because the logging attachments sit very high, they're stacked very high, and the center of balance is all to whack. So the Forester is honestly the best logging vehicle for short and medium logs, but because that's all it can do, it gets a C rating, simply because it's low on versatility. It kind of pains me to do it, but it just can't do anything else. Moving on. The Azov Antarctic. I do not rate this truck in the slightest whatsoever. It is like driving a piece of paper through a blizzard. You know, it has massive, massive mud tires, which are amazing, right? But it is basically as narrow as it can possibly be. It's one of the narrowest trucks I've seen in the game. It's really tall, and because of how its frame is built, all of the attachments for it go really high on the frame, which raises its center of gravity, which just adds to the problem. This thing falls over if you look at it. It is terrible. The stability on it is probably one of the worst of all trucks in the game, I would say. Even like, you know, the Scout 800 isn't as tippy as this guy. You know, it's terrible. And that annoys me because when I saw this truck, it was one of the first trucks that I was like, that I went, ooh, I must have this. That looks amazing. You know, I saw it there, tempting me. It's like, get to level 26 or whatever it is, and you can buy me. And I bought it, and I drove it out the garage and fell over, and I was so disappointed. It was just like, I've waited all this time for this. Really not a good truck. It's got really good power, you know, and the articulated steering does help in some circumstances and isn't helpful in other circumstances, but its stability and its versatility are so bad. It can only fit about 3 or 4 different attachments. Like, it can't fit a crane. It's just not very good. It's just not very good whatsoever. So let's say no more about it and move on, I think. To the truck we were just driving in the game, the Azov 73210. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So good. It can do everything. It can literally do everything. I will add a caveat. When you first get it, this thing does not feel as good as it can be. It does need its add-ons to work better. They have reworked the front nose, so it doesn't catch as much. So even without the active suspension, it doesn't hit as much as you might want, or as much as it did, but it still hits the ground. And it's only when you really get the race suspension that this thing becomes the beast that it is. Before then, it's a little bit hit and missy, and you've got to be a little bit careful with it because you can beach it quite easily. But once you've got the active suspension, once you've got the biggest engine in this thing, it'll just go. It's just brilliant. Yeah, Walker. The only problem is getting the active suspension because it's on a moor, and that is not an easy stage. And it's not even like on the first map; it's on like the 3rd map or something, and you've got to unlock all of it. It's quite a chore to get it, but it's worth it. Because once you've got this thing with its upgrades, it can do everything. It can fit a crane and the long log attachment, so it can do its own loading. It's got space for a crane and a sideboard bed and a trailer hitch. It can fit pretty much every single attachment in the game, which means its versatility is off the chart. And yeah, the downside is that it's a bit slow. But I would rather have a slow and steady truck that gets me there to where I want to go and gets me there upright and with all of my cargo intact than barrels down the road at a breakneck speed and flips over as soon as you hit a pebble, you know? And because of that, it gets an S rank. Now, let's move on to the next one, the boar. The boar I am putting into the C category. It's an odd one, the boar. It's a Russian truck that doesn't get mud tyres, which is odd because pretty much every single Russian truck or Russian classified truck gets mud tyres in this game. Most of the American trucks do not get mud tyres. So this is a kind of an odd one because it's a Russian truck that doesn't have mud tyres and doesn't have a lot of add-on opportunities. If I remember correctly, it can't take a crane. I don't think it can take a crane at all. I don't think it has the option for a crane. It does have a sideboard bed option. It does have saddle options. I believe it only has the high saddle option. But what the boar does have in its favour is an immensely powerful engine. And if you watched, or probably did watch, but if you remember back to when we did Wisconsin on hard mode, I was using the boar. I think I was using the boar, or was that on my other playthrough? That might have been on my own playthrough, but it was either or. I can't remember if I did this on stream or not. But I was using the boar with the super long 8-slot trailer for delivering cargo back and forth to the paper mill on the first Wisconsin map, and it was doing a stellar job at that. It was really good at massive cargo and just keeping going. But like the Forester, it's not very versatile. And if you're not in the market for a big hauling heavy truck, it's not got a lot else that it can do. And there are other trucks that can do the big heavy hauling job better than the boar. So that's why it got a C. It's not terrible, but unless you really love it, I wouldn't recommend it over some other vehicles. Now, the Cat 745C is without a doubt an S rank truck. Now, I was originally thinking of putting this under A, but the more I kind of thought about this particular ranking, the more I thought, no, it's a S rank. It is definitely an S rank. It may not have the versatility. It's only got a log carrier, a cargo container, so like the 2-slot cargo container frame add-on transporter, or a fuel tank. But it has massive tyres, it has a massive engine, and if you need a rescue vehicle, this is it. This is the guy that you take out into the depths of a moor to rescue your stupid arse that's got himself stuck in the ice. And this vehicle will get there, it'll get there nice and easy, and it'll get you out of that situation. And because of this alone, it's going in the S tier. Like I said, I usually value versatility, but in this case, I make an exception because it is so good at the rescue job that it's the best vehicle for a heavy-duty rescue. It will rescue any truck in the game. It doesn't matter how heavy or big that truck is, the Cat will get it out because it has the power and it has the tyres in order to do so. So yeah, I really like the Cat. I don't bring it out that often these days simply because there haven't been many maps where I've gotten stuck, and so there haven't been many situations where I've needed a big vehicle to get me unstuck. But if I do, the Cat will be probably the first vehicle I turn to get me out of that situation. So yeah, a great vehicle. I love it. Plus it's cool. Apart from when it wraps itself round a tree and you've got the logging attachment on it and have to spend half an hour or more digging it out. Looking at you, Alaska map. That was so annoying. But even still, I love it. Now, from one end of the spectrum to the other cat goes straight here. Probably one of the top 3 for worst truck in the game award. This thing is literally only useful for that one mission on Yukon where you have to tow the mining trailers that are purposefully designed to be compatible with this truck and no other truck in the game. Because if I could use a different truck to tow those big trailers, I would. Because this thing is terrible. It doesn't have all-wheel drive. It does have diff lock, if I remember rightly, but it's only got 2 drive wheels. And even with the massive cat tyres, it struggles. Yeah, and I think other than the saddle, as you say there, Walker, I think the only other attachment it can have is van body. And it's not even that useful for that. So, yeah, it gets a D rank. It's literally, you will use it, you will rescue it, you'll use it for that vehicle, for that trailer delivery, and then you'll sell it. And that's it. There's nothing else that you need for this truck. It's just money. That's all it is. That's what it's there for a cash boost. But otherwise, pay it no heed. So, moving on, where did I put the Dan? The Dan is a nice solid A-rank truck. I have only really recently started using the Dan. It was back on the Glades map when I needed another truck to take out and do some missions. And I thought, hey, I'll take the Dan out. I've not really used the Dan. It looks like a solid thing. It doesn't have a crane, which kind of annoys me because it's got the space on the frame for a crane. It just won't mount a crane. It doesn't have the option for a crane, which is really annoying. Because I think, like the Tatras, if the Dan had the option of fitting the Tatra crane, I think that would be amazing. Because it's the kind of vehicle that would suit the Tatra crane more than just the standard kind of Russian crane. But it didn't get a crane at all. So, sad face. Sad face. But it's really stable with a fully loaded semi-trailer on it. It can do a fair rate of knots, and it's fun to drive. It's very responsive. You know, it does have a very long wheelbase, which can leave it to getting high-centered. You can, if you run over things, you can kind of get it stuck underneath and high-center it. But if you're not silly whilst driving it, this thing will keep going. It's kind of like the Azov in the same way. It's a little bit faster, a little less versatile than the Azov. And because of that, it gets an A instead. Because, like I said, guys, I value versatility in my trucks, but it's a really good one if you need like a heavy hauler. The Dan will do you proud. Now, the Derry, that's the 3194. Where did I put that? That goes into the C rank. It's not as bad as these trucks, guys, but it's nothing special. It has some glaring problems, most caused by the dead axle that it has. It just gets stuck. And the problem with that dead axle, a problem with all trucks that have dead axles, is if you catch those axles on the ground or on something, because they're not powered, you can't use that obstacle to get you off the obstacle. And those tyres will just stick, and that's it. You're stuck. Boom. Especially if you kind of bounce onto them, because then it'll lift your rear tyres off the ground as well, and you basically beat yourself on that axle. And it's not great. I mean, I believe the 3194 has had a few upgrades since its first introduction to the game, but it's It's not good. It's not that great. There are better trucks for doing what it does. It's basically a saddle truck. I don't think it has the option for a crane, if I remember rightly. It can fit a high and a low saddle, but for high and low saddle work, there are much better trucks that can either fit a crane or have more power or don't have the pitfall of the dead axle. That is its major problem. What are you saying there, Walker? No all-wheel drive. Yeah, it also, when it first released, it didn't have an all-wheel drive, and now it does, which is good, but it still doesn't save it. But it's not as bad as the D-class trucks, so I'm willing to put it in a C if you need to use it in a pinch. It is a free truck after all. You do get it for free on Alaska. So if you need a heavy hauling truck and you don't have anything else, you can use it. But just be aware that it does have some major issues with it. Now let's move on to the next dairy. And the 4520 gets a B rate. I haven't used this truck very often. This is one of the trucks that I went back and revisited recently to kind of get a new feel for them. And it actually impressed me. What I will say about this dairy, the 4520, is it's really maneuverable. Like the Azov 7, it has rear wheel steering. It doesn't have double front steering like the Azov, but it's because it only has the one set of tyres at the front. But the front tyres and the rear tyres turn, which does mean that this thing can actually take corners really sharply, and it allows you to kind of zigzag very well. Like on twisty-turny roads and twisty-turny paths, you can actually zigzag as effectively as you can in like a Scout or something like that. And this thing recently had a new engine. I can't remember which phase it came in now. Get my words right eventually. But the new engine just sends its power through the roof. Like the other dairy, it does suffer in terms of its versatility. I do believe it can only have a high or a low saddle, like the 3194, but it's way better in performance. This thing will just go, But like most American trucks, it doesn't have a mud tyre. So I would reserve this thing for heavy hauling on dirt tracks, not mud tracks, dirt tracks or highway use for long distance hauling, because for heavy hauling as well, it can do a good job. It can do a really good job at doing that, I think. And yeah, it's just not as versatile as some of the other trucks on the A and the S tier. So it gets a solid B. It's a good truck, but you do have to buy it. You don't get it for free anywhere as part of a mission, and that's something to its detriment, because unlike the 3194 that you might use because it's free and you have it in your garage, this one you actually have to go out and buy, and it's quite an expensive one. I think it's 120 something thousand to buy this truck. And if you're going to spend that much money on that truck, you might as well just buy an Azov or a Dan or something else. Unless you really like this truck, there's not really a reason to buy it. But if you do like that truck and you do want to buy it, it does a very good job. And if you want a fast, responsive, very controllable heavy hauling truck, the 4520 does it nicely. It really does it nicely. Yeah, so good stuff. Now, the new dairy, the dairy special. I'm still getting to grips with it. I'm still using it, but it is without a doubt the best dairy in the game. Its only issue, I would say, is its stability a little bit. but that seems to be when it's carrying its water tank add-on. With its water tank add-on, I've already experienced this twice now. It does have a tendency to roll if you get it on too much of an angle, but so do a lot of trucks. So I'm not going to count that entirely against it. It has an amazing, compared to the other derries, it has a really good selection of add-ons, and I'm actually really looking forward to using this thing as a hauling truck once I'm done using it as a water transporter. You know, once we are through phase 9 and we're on to phase 10, and I can reconfigure this thing as a cargo hauler, I think I'm going to absolutely fall in love with it. More so than I have done so far. Because I think with a saddle and a semi trailer on it, this thing will be pretty good. So yeah, it's going in the A tier for now. Good power, good versatility, a little bit wobbly. Would recommend. Recommended tires is for wide tires. Yes, wide tires, definitely. You don't want to pick any skinny tires for this thing because that won't help it either. Now, this guy, where is he? The 5600 Paystar. He is going in the B tier. And I am really sad that I am putting this guy in the B tier. I am so sad I am putting this guy in the B tier. When Wisconsin came out, and I found out that this truck was going to be in the game, right? I looked at it and went, that's a lot of tyres. That's a cool looking truck. I want to use that all the time. You know, I was really excited about it. And it's not a bad truck. It's not bad. It has insane power. It has good stability. It's not as stable as some trucks, but it certainly doesn't roll over as much as other trucks, you know? It doesn't bounce, you know? It's solid. It's on the road. But if you so much as pass a fuel station, it will devour every single litre of fuel in that fuel station and cause a massive drought for the next 10 years. It eats every piece of fuel that is available to it and then some. And that is why I've put it in B, as opposed to higher up the list, which is where I would have wanted to have put it, you know? I wanted to put this thing in probably very high A tier, tapping on the door of S tier in terms of its versatility, because like the Azov, it can fit a logging crane and the long log attachment. It has a extra long 3-slot cargo bed. It has an extra long fuel tank. It has an extra long maintenance frame add-on. It has such a long wheelbase that it can fit so many options to it. And it's just... the fuel just destroys it, you know? I would be using this truck a lot more often on my own streams if the fuel efficiency was slightly better. And I know you can kind of try and mitigate it a little bit by using like high range gearboxes, by maybe not using the best engine so that you've got more fuel efficiency out of it, but that kind of stunts its ability to go places and to pull cargo. You really want to be using the big engine in this guy because it gives you the power to do things. You want to be using like the off-road gearbox and stuff like that because it gives you those extra low gears to get in and out of muddy situations. But it just eats fuel. And because of that, it has to go in the B tier. It's not a C tier category. I can't put it in C tier. It'd break my heart if I have to put this thing in a C tier. But I certainly can't put it any higher than a B. You know, I just can't. It just can't go there. If at some point down the line, this thing was to get, say, a better gearbox that improves its fuel efficiency, or maybe a slightly more fuel efficient, powerful engine, even if it's not as powerful as the main engine, it would be such a game changer. I would have this out of the garage in an instant because I love it. But when you compare it to the Azov, who sips fuel like a dainty lady, I can't justify using the 5600 over the Azov to do the same job. You know, that's where it kind of comes into view. But this thing does make a good fuel transporter. If you want to stick the big fuel tank on it and tow a fuel trailer behind it, it can carry an obscene amount of fuel. And if you need like a lot of fuel delivering to an area, this thing will work really well for that, because it will get you there. It'll probably slurp half of the fuel you're transporting, but it'll still have more fuel in it than most of the trucks could transport, even doing so. So I have actually used it for that purpose in the past. Ooh, excuse me. Just post it on Discord. What are you saying there, Walker? I'm not quite sure. Anyway, if you're posting it on Discord, sure. I will take a look at that later. Now, the Kiravettes, these tractor dudes, they are both going in the C tier. I wasn't excited about farming. I don't think anybody was. Well, initially excited about farming. But as soon as I started doing the farming missions, I was very much over it as soon as I had done the first farming mission that I did. And then they just kept on going. Just so many farming missions. And for the most part, I was using the is it the K7? I think it's the K7 and the 700. So the K7 is the one that you get initially, and it is terrible. It's really bad at controlling those farming implements. The 700 isn't much better either. Once you're through the farming, they're all right, but I still don't think they've got much versatility. I would probably mostly use them as rescue vehicles. But like I was saying earlier when I was talking about the cat is such a good rescue vehicle. It's better than these. And these guys don't have the versatility to do anything else. Their van body attachments are good. I will give them that. They have both fuel and repair points. I think one has more fuel and less repairs, and the other one has more repairs and less fuel. They're not bad at doing that, but I think the cat is much better. And because they can't do anything else other than that once you've done with the farming, they're just not that versatile. You know, you can't use them to do something else later down the line. And that's kind of where I sit with these. Right? You know, they've got good power and they've got good tyres, but they don't do anything else. Once you've used them for farming, that's kind of it. They're not useful in any other way, shape, or form. If you need a second rescue vehicle or something, maybe it's outside of the cat, then they might prove to be useful. But if you need a second, if you've taken the cat out and you need a vehicle to rescue the cat, you've done something terribly wrong, because that shouldn't happen. Yeah, so they're just not that great. Just not that great in terms of their versatility kills them. That's what happens. They're not bad trucks, but their ability to do other things once you've done farming is kind of like the nail in the coffin for them, I would say. That, and they kind of handle like dogs. Drunk dogs that are kind of already dead. So, sorry dogs, I love you all, but yeah, yeah, not that great. Not that great. Let's leave it at that. I don't want to go on about it too much. Let's see here. What have we got next? The Kolobs. Both Kolobs are going to go into the B tier. Now, they're here for pretty much the same reason that the Derry 4520 is here. These two trucks are really good heavy haulers. I've never used them on my own games very much. They're very expensive to buy. You have to buy them, like the Derry, and they can only both of these can only equip a heavy saddle. That's the only add-on they can equip. And there are trucks in the game that do heavy saddle rescues just as well as these. We'll get onto one later. Which kind of makes these guys redundant. I didn't want to put them in C because, unlike the Kirovets that are useless in their own way, these guys do actually have some uses. They're really powerful. They've got really good tyres. And they are actually good, strong trucks. You know, if you need a really heavy-duty, high saddle hauler, you know, these two trucks will do a really good job at that. They just can't do very much else. You know, they just don't do much else, which is why they're in the B category. But they are good trucks. I put on the picture from hauling skills. Walker, you're talking about the Scout Fuel sideboard trailer. Yes, actually, that's not a bad way to get some use out of this. The 5600, using it with a trailer and a Scout Fuel trailer hitched in behind it. That can give you a bit more range, but still, it'll guzzle that fuel very quickly. But I will have a look at Discord later, Walker. Just getting through this tier list first. Right, so these guys, heavy haulers. There are other trucks that can do it just as well, if not better. So their power saves them. Their power and their tyres save them a little bit over the Kirovets. So they jump up to the B tier. Now, the Navistar. The Navistar. Where did I put the Navistar? The Navistar is a C rank. Very much like the Kolobs. I don't often see a lot of people using this, simply because it was a pre-order bonus truck. And you can't get it unless you pre-ordered the game. There's no other way of getting it. You have to have pre-ordered the game in order to have unlocked this truck. And if you didn't pre-order the game, I don't think you can get it in any way, shape, or form. I might be wrong there. I might be wrong. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, it's just kind of like the Kolobs, but not as good. It's not got as much power. It's not got as great tyres. Being American, it doesn't get mud tyres, which the Kolobs do. You used it on Yukon Walker. Nice. It's good to see that all trucks are, being used. But yeah, the Navistar isn't anything particularly special. Again, it can only do saddle work. It can have a crane, but it can't have a saddle if it does have a crane, which means you're down to towing a trailer, which cuts down its ability again. So yeah, it's nothing too special, you know. Its power is good, you know. It does have a very strong engine in it, but its versatility is way down, way down. But it's not as bad as the D tier trucks, so it survives in a C category. So let's move on to the 3 Pacific trucks, and these guys are actually quite interesting in their own way. We'll start with the P12 here, I think. Yeah, this is the P12, the first one, isn't it? And it gets a nice solid A tier. Now, like most American trucks, it doesn't get mud tyres, but its tyre options are pretty good. It has a lovely big engine in it. and it has the best versatility out of all of the Pacific trucks so far. It can fit a wide variety of different options. The only thing with it is that because of how the frame is organized, it has a very high frame compared to other trucks that, like other trucks will have its frame and its wheels will kind of sit adjacent to the frame. The P12 kind of has an elevated frame, so the P12 will be, the frame will be up here and the tires will be kind of more here, which means that when you add an add-on on top of the frame, it adds it even higher, which can affect its balance a little bit. But it's still not as bad as some other trucks for balance, and it's got very good power, and because of the different variety of frame add-ons that it can have, I've put it in the A tier. It's... What are you saying there? Good for special hauling contracts. Yeah, I think one of the things with the P12 is that it needs weight on its frame. If you can put a good weight on there, then it will... its performance is a lot better than if it's unloaded. Unloaded, the frame disappears into the stratosphere. It can get a little bit unstable, and because it doesn't have weight, it does tend to lose grip a little bit. But it's still a very strong truck, and like I said, it has a very good versatility. So it's going up there in the A tier. The P16, what did I do with that? And the other Pacific, where did I put that? Okay, so both of these guys are going in the B tier. So these two trucks have some similarities between them, which is quite surprising. Both of these trucks do not have all-wheel drive. They only have rear-wheel drive. Both of them have access to a diff lock. I think with the P16 it's always on. With the 512, so this guy, it's always on diff lock. This guy is switchable. But the tyres that they can have are special Pacific tyres, which have, although they are off-road tyres, their actual mud rating is like just as good as regular mud tyres for most other vehicles, which means that despite their tyre selection not looking that great, they do perform in mud. The issue comes with the lack of all-wheel drive for them. They can struggle. The 512, this guy, can struggle a lot in mud, and it's simply because it doesn't have access to all-wheel drive. The front tyres are spinning. They're not spinning at all. They're just sat there doing nothing. They're providing no help with traction. This is true for both of them, by the way, but when you're steering, they don't help to pull you round a corner. So their maneuverability is somewhat lessened by that, because if you have all-wheel drive on a truck and you're trying to take a steep turn or take a turn when you're going uphill, the front tyres help to bite into the ground and pull the front of the truck around that corner as you're turning, whilst the rear tyres are providing you with more power. The P12, the P16 and the P512 do not have that option because they lack the all-wheel drive, which means if you are trying to take a turn, the tyres aren't biting. They aren't dragging the truck in that direction. They're just providing a direction, which means if they've not got a lot of weight on them, they're just gonna do nothing. The P12 kind of gets the P16. This is the P12. This is the P16. The P16 gets around it a little bit because it has immense power. It has such a huge engine. It just pushes its way through things. It has massive dual tyres at the back, 2 sets of dual tyres. So it's got 8 tyres at the rear, pushing it through. And with the always-on diff lock, you can go full automatic, and it will push you through there. It is a solid hauler. The 512 doesn't have the same amount of oomph behind it, because its stiff lock has to be used in low gear only, because it's switchable. And it doesn't have the same weight as the P12. In fact, I'm actually going to move this down here. The more I talk about it, the more I'm not... It doesn't match up to the P16 in the same way. So despite the tyres being really good because of the special specific tyres that it gets, it just does not have the engine power, I find, to push it through most situations. And it will get stuck, and it will rely on using low gears with the diff lock in order to get you through most situations, which is a shame because I actually kind of like this truck. I think if it got all-wheel drive, it would probably jump up probably to the A tier because it has a good versatile range of add-ons. But without the all-wheel drive, it struggles to get through some situations. So it's dropping down to a C rank. It's dropping down to a C rank. Now, the Tatras. Let's talk about the Tatras. So, the Force is a solid A tier truck. I use this a lot. The crane is amazing. It can do a sideboard bed or a saddle. It can only do a high saddle, sadly. But with a sideboard bed and a trailer behind it, it can haul a lot of cargo. It will go through most situations. It has access to both all-wheel drive and diff lock. They're both switchable, which in the diff lock case isn't as great because if the diff lock was always on, I think for the Tatra, it would go up to an S rank. But the diff lock requires it to be in low gear, and it's not a fast truck to start with. Putting this thing in low gear with the diff lock on, it will get you through thick mud. It will push you through 99% of situations, but it will do so incredibly slowly. I would say it's probably slower than the Azov in some situations. Don't get me wrong, I love this thing. From the moment I unlocked this truck, I've loved it. But it's not a fast truck. It has good versatility, it has excellent power, and like I said, it will get you through most situations, but do not expect it to get you through those situations quickly, because it will not do that. It also has a very unique suspension, which becomes more stable the more weight you put on it. It has the inward angled rear suspension, which is really, really kind of cool to watch. I do kind of like it. But it becomes better the more weight you can put on it as well. Because otherwise it can be a little bit squiffy. It's not tippy. It's definitely not tippy in the same way that some trucks are, but without weight on it, it can be a little bit squirrely. It can weave around, it can wallow a little bit because of how the suspension is programmed. But it's still a good truck. And I strongly think it's an A tier. The other Tatra is going to go in the B tier. Now this was part of the DLC, the free DLC that came out as the anniversary pack, and it's like the Force. This is the T813, I think it is. T813, yeah, T813. It's like the Force, but it doesn't have the same versatility. It can't have a crane. And it's limited to like a sideboard bed and I think a high saddle in terms of its hauling capability. It performs pretty much exactly like the Force. It has the same kind of suspension, same kind of engine, same kind of pulling power. It still has all-wheel drive and diff lock available to it in switchable forms, but it doesn't have the same versatility as the Force because it doesn't have a crane. So because of that, it's still a good hauler, but if you were going to use a Tatra, use the Force. Yeah, like you say there, Walker, the versatility isn't as good. as the Force, but it is, I would say, probably better than these here in the C rank. So it goes in the B rank. It's a truck that I would probably never use because I have other trucks to do its job. But if you want it, it'll do a decent job, you know? It'll do a decent job. So let's talk about these two, well, the Western Stars. The next three of them are the Western Stars. Let's talk about these guys. So these two came in the Wolf Pack, and this came as a separate DLC. And they kind of surprised me. I was actually surprised that all three of these trucks are classified as heavy trucks because they look more like heavy-duty trucks to me. And I think I would probably prefer them. If these were classified as heavy-duty trucks, I would probably look on them a little bit more favourably than as heavy trucks. With the exception of maybe the 49X here. I think the 49X is probably a heavy truck. But these two, I would say, are probably more heavy-duty trucks than they are heavy trucks. They really do stagger the border. And I would say probably fall more in the heavy-duty than they do in the heavy. But they're here in the heavy class, so we're reviewing them as part of the heavy class. So this is the 1424. Where did I have that? I was pleasantly surprised by the 1424. I've been trying it out on some save games myself, giving it some big hauling jobs and everything. And it actually works surprisingly well. Like most American trucks, it doesn't have mud tyres, so you have to bear that in mind. It's not going to perform at its best in heavy mud. But it does have a good engine, and it's the only truck in the Wolfpack DLC that has a roof rack. Actually, one of the only trucks in the heavy class that actually has a roof rack. Most of these guys don't. I mean, even the Azov doesn't have a roof rack. The Tatra Force does. And which other ones have a roof rack? I don't think any of them do. Oh, the Zeeks does, I think. But that's like it. So it's one of the only trucks in the heavy class that has a roof rack available to it. And it doesn't provide it with a lot of fuel, but it does increase its range by about another 50%. This thing has good power. It has good power, and it has some interesting options available to it. But the one thing about it is that it's a very short wheelbase. It's kind of like the original Tega. It's a very short wheelbase truck. And because of that, it can't have... I don't think it gets a crane option at all. So you like some of the other classes can do a sideboard bed and a crane but not take a trailer. This doesn't have a crane at all. So it's best for kind of saddle work, or as you say there, Walker, long logs. Because it can take the long log attachment. And on like decent roads and mud tracks, this thing will bomb along the road at a very good rate of knots. It's very stable, and it has access to a raised suspension and an active suspension option, which means it gets nice tyres, nice big tyres, so it can avoid most of the ruts and the rocks that are scattered around all over the place. It's a solid truck, you know, it's a solid truck. I would probably say if you were going to use one of the Wolfpack trucks, like any of them, this is the one that I would say go for. Because unlike the other Wolfpack trucks, it doesn't have very many downsides, other than its lack of mud tyres, which it is a slight problem. But if you're careful, you can go around those problems, and it performs really nicely. The 1430, on the other hand, is that's a bad seat here. It's a bad seat here. It's got a double dead axle. So, you know when I was talking about the Derry with its dead axle? This thing has a double dead axle. And all of the points I made about the Derry apply to this guy as well. It doesn't have mud tyres. That dead axle will get snagged. You know, it takes up half of the frame almost. These double this double dead axle, and it will high center itself. It does have some versatility. I will give it that. Surprisingly, you know, it's one of the trucks that can actually take a logging crane and the long log attachment, which means that it can load its own long logs, which is a surprising thing for one of these trucks. It is so long. Its power isn't bad. Its tyres are the same as the other one. It suffers problems because of that dead axle. That's what holds it back. If that wasn't there, I don't know why they're putting trucks into the game that have this dead axle, other than for, you know, realistic modelling of the truck. But I wish it had some way of utilising those. I wish there was, like, say, an upgrade that you could get somewhere that would allow you to power those dead axles. And I think if that was the case, that truck would work a lot better, because having another 2 powered axles, you pop those down on the road and you'd be flying. You'd have 10 tyres on the road there doing the powering. And I think that would be amazing. Also, yes, Walker, like you say, it has very small tyres and it doesn't have a raised suspension either. So it really does get snagged on that axle, which is a big issue. Yeah, so not great. Not terrible, but definitely not great, you know. Has its own fair share of problems, I would say. Now, the 49X, that is also going up in the B tier. I've been using this guy on my hard mode playthrough recently, and I have found that this guy is a highway monster. Put it with some, say, all-terrain tyres on it, so that it has a little bit of mud capability, a little bit of dirt capability. Stick a crane trailer on it, and up and down dirt tracks and on roads, this thing will destroy the terrain. It's really good. It's kind of similar to the 1424 in that respect. I don't think the 49X has a raised suspension, so it doesn't have quite the ground clearance. But it has very good power, and I kind of like it, and its fuel efficiency is not that bad either. But yeah, it suffers from the heavy duty truck problem, right? All of these 3 trucks suffer from the heavy duty truck problem, which is that they are not heavy trucks. The heavy duty trucks, really, these 3 seriously should be in the heavy duty class. Yeah, they are not heavy trucks, either of these 3. They should not be in this class, but they are, so they're here. But yeah, they're not. They don't have the weight behind them that some of these other trucks do, and because of that, they suffer in terms of grip and in terms of their ability to go through certain terrains. So yeah, not bad, not the greatest. Now, let's finish off this list. I've been wittering along here for quite a while now. So, the where are we here for this guy? The twin steer. The twin steer is going in the B rank here. Now, I really like the twin steer. It's once you get, well, even before you get, but certainly once you get the all-wheel drive upgrade for this guy in Amandra, it's a beast. You know, it's a really powerful, really fast truck. It has huge mud tires. You know, it's those 3 things in itself are massive plus points for it. It's one of the only American trucks that do get mud tires. There's not a lot of them around that get actual dedicated mud tyres. This thing has huge mud tyres. It's got 4 slots of cargo on it, and in the early game, it is really useful for long-range deliveries. It does suffer a little bit in terms as the same problems of the 5600. Its fuel efficiency is not that great, especially with the biggest engine, the most power. It will chew fuel, but not as bad as the 5600 I found in my books. The only thing that holds it back is its versatility. It can only carry cargo, and it can only do 4 slots of cargo because it does not have a trailer hitch either. If it had a trailer hitch, I would probably push it up to an A tier, because being able to hitch up, say, a 4-slot trailer like I use with a lot of my other vehicles, and being able to take 8 slots of cargo would be insane. I would use this guy all the time if that was the case. But it can only do 4 slots of cargo. And if you want it to do more, it has to use a winch to do it, and you probably have to get another truck to hook the trailer up, to load it, or to put the cargo on with a crane or something like that, which causes a whole load of aggravated annoyances. That would take a lot of support just to be able to tow a trailer on a winch. And that's not the best idea either, because if you're towing a trailer on a winch, you can't use it to rescue yourself if you hit something at a bad angle. And also, that trailer is very prone to tipping over when they're on winches. So it's not the best thing. So because of that, it gets a B tier. What I would say is, when you get it in Michigan, use it. Have fun with it. Do some long-range missions with it. Carry some big cargoes on it. But you will very quickly find that its usefulness drops away because of its it's very good at doing one particular thing, but sometimes you need a truck that can do a lot of things at the same time, and it can't do that. It can't get a crane. It can't tow a trailer. So unless you have a job that doesn't need anything else doing, there are better trucks. But it's still very good at what it does. As a long-range kind of heavy cargo hauling truck, it does a really good job. So yeah, it gets a nice B tier. And let's see here. Phone, wake up. You have gone to sleep. And so we get to the final truck on the list, the Zix 605. And that goes straight into the A tier. It is quite possibly the best truck in the game at the moment. Huge mud tyres, always on, all-wheel drive and diff lock. Just the power and the weight to push through any and all situations. Yeah, it's not quite as versatile as some of the other trucks. It can't take a crane, for example. The king of the heavy trucks. Indeed it is. Indeed it is, Walker. It's got its name for a reason, guys. It's really, really good. It can tow a trailer, so you can put a sideboard bed on it, tow a trailer, do 6 slots of cargo, or you can put a saddle on it and do 5 slots of cargo. Depends how you want to utilize it like that. It also has a high saddle mount, so it can do some of the biggest hauling jobs in the game without any issues. It has power, it has weight, it has tyres, and it has enough versatility to make it useful in all situations. I tend not to use it that much, which is surprising, because it's almost too good at what it does. But I may bring it out the garage actually at some point, because I get so tunnel focused on using other trucks that I forget that it exists. But I really should utilize the power of the Zeeks more. It's just so good that it almost feels like easy mode at times, you know. But maybe we'll bring it out of the garage at some point down the line. But that, guys. Ooh, my nose is on fire. Sorry for all of the itching that's going on here, guys. But that is it for the tier list. So, as you can see, quite a lot of trucks that I think are kind of middle of the road. The B and the C trucks, there's not a great deal in it between both of those two categories. But the B tiers are definitely better than the C tiers if you want a truck to use in most cases, apart from the Forester. I was almost tempted to put the Forester into a B tier. But hey, there we go. That's where it is now. I'm not going to move any of them, not at this point in time. So those are your trucks, guys. I would say if you're using anything in the S and the A rank, you're doing pretty good. You know, if you're using any combination of those trucks, you'll probably have no problem with this game at all in terms of hauling. If you want a bit more of a challenge, drop down to the B tier, use some of those trucks. They're not quite as versatile as some of the other trucks higher up. They'll still get the job done, but you may be using like 3 or 4 of them in combination, whereas you might only be using 1 or 2 of the higher ranked trucks to do the same kind of combination of jobs. But yeah, avoid the D tier trucks at all costs. What are you saying there, Walker? Let's have a look. You think the Colobs should be higher? Maybe the Colobs should be higher. They're very good at doing what they do. I will not take that away from the Colobs. They are amazing at heavy duty hauling, but that's all they do. That's all they do, you know. And like I say, I personally, as a player, I value versatility over everything else in this game. I like a truck that can do pretty much everything. And I can just go around the map and I can do anything I want to without having to bring additional vehicles out to do other jobs, you know. And that's what I value, and I think that reflects in the tier list that I've created there, guys. So let me know your thoughts. If you're watching this later on YouTube, do let me know what you agree with, what you think I should have ranked differently. Give me some reasons behind things if you have different experiences with certain trucks that I've placed in places. Would love to hear your thoughts, you know, and maybe at some point down the line we will revisit all of these tier lists, because this is the first time I've done these tier lists, you know, and it is for Phase 9 up to this stage, and you never know, further down the line trucks have already had upgrades and changes to them that have made them better or worse. So we'll revisit these tier lists a few phases from now and see if things have changed. But until then, guys, that is it for today. So thank you very much for joining me. And as always, I will see you in the next stream. So until then, take care, stay safe, and I will see you next time. Thanks, everyone, and bye for now.